So this is going to be a quick blitz through a conversation because this conversation around exit and succession planning is really kind of enormous. And to try to do it in half an hour, this is just an overview, really, just to kind of get started. But here's the thing, even if you're not currently planning to sell, or even if you say, I never want to sell, everything that we talk about today is actually going to help your company become better. And so this is all about how to help you think about creating transferable value in your company. It's great if your company is worth a lot, but if it's only worth that to you, it's not as good as if you've got that transferable value that actually you can transfer to somebody else. And so that's part of what we're going to be looking at today when we're discussing the idea of business exit and succession planning. So like I mentioned before, there's a lot of content that I'm going to be looking at here today and sharing with you, and I'm going to be moving along rather quickly. So I want to just encourage you to take note of a couple things that might be holding you or your company back. And I want you to be able to walk away with at least one thing, and I believe you'll find one thing as we go through this, but one thing that you plan to improve. And I'm going to come back at the end and ask you about that. And so let's just kind of dig into this. The agenda for today, we're going to look at the inherent challenges, even just asking the question, is your business transferable? What does that look like? And then start discussing, the things around the idea of to sell or to transfer, and then we'll just a quick discussion if we've got time at the end, and then the core process is where I want to kind of just have us walk away with that one thing that you want to be able to have to carry with you. So as a quick introduction, and Dara Lee already said a few things, and thank you so much for that. I am a husband. That's probably one of the most important things in my life. I'm a father of two, and now I have a son-in-law. And the other joy in our life is working and playing with old Jeeps. And so, of course, that's an older photo. This one is a little more contemporary from the wedding this spring. I'm also a business investor, a business exit advisor, a thinking partner to executive C-suite teams, and certified master business coach with more than 2,500 hours of coaching sessions. I've been a consultant for over 20 years. And was honored as 2022 Business Coach of the Year with the PBCA. So that's just a little bit about me. Let's move on to the inherent challenges of what it means to think about business. The inherent challenges, these are things that are really that are kind of just baked into the whole concept of why we don't hear a whole lot about business planning and exit planning and actually thinking about it. It's actually a secretive thing. A lot of business owners don't really want to talk about it, especially if they're a family-owned business. Many family-owned businesses, they almost stay under the radar until it's too late. And they're really wary of outsiders, people like me, coaches or consultants, or even in-laws. People that are on the outside are sometimes not really seen as being helpful to a business. And so that's a challenge that we have to consider. 81% of family-owned businesses fail to transition to the next generation. And 12%, actually survive from the second to the third. So there are very few long-standing, and the ones that are long-standing actually receive a lot of accolades for those efforts and the work that they put into it. And so we're going to, globally, only 24% of family-owned businesses are focused on next-gen involvement, on the next generation. And so that's part of the concern, is how do we actually think about the next generation if we want to move in that direction. Additional challenges that we just have businesses that they're unaware, they're unprepared, or they're unwilling to really think about the future. I have a client right now, honestly. We have had these conversations, and every time he shuts down. He does not want to think about the future. He just wants to think about the present circumstances in his business. And so it's a challenge. And I face that even as I'm coaching and working with my existing clients. Last thing I want to be able to mention in this is that this is different than a public corporation. Public corporations don't have to deal with these different dimensions. And I want to talk about the specific dimensions that are challenges to family-owned businesses. And that's right in the name, all right? First is the family. We have to figure out who is a part of the family, that choice between being inclusive or exclusive. And are in-laws considered to be a part of the family? What is a true family when it comes to business? Then we start to think about ownership, right? The next stage is thinking about what is that ownership strategy? Is it shared? Is it concentrated? what are the defining criteria for the right choice for moving forward with how you create the ownership of and that's the structure piece. And lastly is then the business itself, the potential roles of family members within the business, thinking about well, honestly, that's one of the easiest things to think about, but it's one of the most difficult to implement, is actually having conversations with family around what are the roles, and what does the management look like. I would challenge the notion that management really must be based on meritocracy and not, just because you're family, you get a job. Those are some things to be able to think about. We're actually really convinced that planning for multi-generational sustainability needs to start at the top, where the family is first. What does the family want? And then the overarching goals of the family. What do they have in the business? What do they aspire for in the future? And is the family still qualified to be the best owner? That's one of the challenging questions. And can a business be developed and grown for yet another generation? Once we kind of get into that, we stop and say, all right, so let me just ask you, as we're talking, I'd love to hear from you. Put a number in the chat according to the numbers that are here. Why is exit planning important to you? What is it that is a concern? Is it that you want to exit on your own terms, maximizing company value, preserving wealth for future generations, ensuring a financially comfortable retirement, protecting peace of mind, or there may be another reason? I would love to just hear if you'd like to throw that in the chat. I'll pause for a second. Okay. Thinking about the future for, financially comfortable retirement. Sure. Okay. Well, we will actually kind of touch on that a little bit. So funny how that works out. So here's the thing. When we are thinking about exit and succession planning options, there are a lot of different things. Oftentimes, there's the thought, well, I either sell it or I just shutter the business. I just close it. There are a lot of different ways to think about how to exit a business. And these are just a few of the different options that are available. And those are all things that can be explored. But I just wanted to at least plant that seed, that the idea that there's a lot going on and a lot of different ways to consider moving forward and exiting. And then what does that look like for the succession on your side? One of the first things we want to be able to do is define your motives and goals. And so that was one of the earlier questions. What is it that actually driving you? Your motives and goals should drive the process, not those of an outside source. And I really want to challenge you to write your goals down. What is it you want to do? How do you want to guide and protect against the doubt and the confusion that's going to come? I have gone through the exit process of selling a business, and I can tell you doubt and confusion enters into the conversation more times than you want to admit, than I want to admit. Identify a timeline, think about what you really want to do, think about your financial and emotional readiness. When we talk about financial and emotional readiness, well, let's look at a quadrant real quick and just think about, okay, financial readiness going up, emotional readiness from left to right. All right, we may be fully emotionally ready to go, but we're not financially ready. The business is not financially ready. We're just saying, get me out at the highest possible price. And I can guarantee you it will not be the highest possible price. Now, there is also, okay, I'm not ready to go. Neither is the business ready to be sold. Great. Stay and grow. That's a great space to be in. Or we could be really financially well off. The business is functioning well, but I'm not emotionally ready to go. That's actually where my other client, when I mentioned him earlier, I'm like, okay, you're well off. All right, choosing to still work, go for it. Let's just keep cranking out and moving forward in that space. At some point in time in the future, he will become emotionally ready. And that balance of financial readiness and emotional readiness is when you can really maximize the exit and what that looks like. So then the question becomes, is your business actually transferable? When we talk about transferable, when we think about leverage sales, right? The actual business that you're doing, the things that you're doing, the revenue that you're generating, and the bankable profits that are coming from that business. And you're generating the momentum, right? And as I was saying earlier, that's that space where you can actually have great sales and great profits, but if there's nothing transferable, then it's really valuable to you and to nobody else. And so what we're really wanting to think about is, what does it look like to begin to have transferable value, those unique and diverse products and services, the predictability of profits, the lack of dependence upon the owners, systemization pieces, customer loyalty, All these things allows you to begin to create a fundable process that also allows for optionality from the profits, and you become exit ready. So that's what we want to begin to think about, is how do we move that direction? Now, I'm going to pause because we're going to come back to the idea of transferring and thinking about those different pieces when I'm kind of the list that I just mentioned. But let me just ask you this. What's your number? A couple of you actually mentioned, or put in the chat, thinking about retirement planning. Well, this is a bit like that. And that is, we're looking at what do you need? Not what you want, but what do you need? And you need to consider, what are the soft benefits that you're getting from your company right now? Maybe your company is paying for a car payment. Maybe they're actually providing the gas for, that you're actually putting into your car. I mean, my goodness, it could be your travel. It could be eating out 2 or 3 nights a week. The company, all those soft benefits, they go away when you sell a business, or if you bring somebody into the business as a partner in the business or anything else. So it's important that you make sure that it's not just that you're losing the cash of the sales, you're also losing the ability to write it off too. So need to consider those things and the tax implications of what happens when you sell. So this is part of that process, identifying what is it that we're trying to figure out. So determining your number, that desired monthly income, multiply that by 12. I'll have an example here in a second. And then divide that by just a return on that post-exit investments. All right, so after tax. Just as a quick, way to kind of explain that. All right, 12,000 a month times 12, 120,000, right? At 5% ROI, that means my minimum required, my determined number is 2.4 million. In other words, that's what I need to be able to sell the business for. However, we also have some additional numbers, right? We need to be able to figure out, all right, we need to take that number, all right, that 2.4, and divide it by an exit multiple for your particular industry. When we look at your particular industry and we take your number, divide it by the the exit multiple, sorry, then we get the minimum required exit. And that's where what we begin to look at as a target for what we need to sell your business for. And if it's even at that stage, or if there's actual value in that space. You might be wondering, okay, where do I even figure out what these multiples are? All right, so that's really looking at EBITDA multiples. There's charts and pieces that are out there that you can pull from, particular to industries. A lot of times that's used on the public sector, and so smaller businesses, they need to be actually need to probably cut those multiples by 4 to be able to consider those things if you're under 10 million in gross sales or 2 million in profit. And the SDE, the seller's discretionary earnings, that's more if you're in a space where you are the owner operator, because what happens is if you get the seller's discretionary earnings, that's something where basically if somebody's coming in to buy your business, they're actually buying a job too, because you're still there. So EBITDA actually will get a higher multiple than SDE because the buyers are willing to pay for a professionally managed business. So those are some things to think about in the way in which you want to be able to consider how you move forward. So part of the reality check is your company providing the EBITDA SDE today to achieve your minimum required exit? So that's kind of when we run through that little bit of a calculation. Again, it all comes down to that idea of being emotionally ready and financially ready. So is the company ready to go? So one thing that I would love to I'm just going to throw out a list of a few things here real quick, because I know we are flying by with the time, but just some areas that you want to think about how to gain additional transferable value in your business. On the management side with employees and advisors, both internally and externally. But internally, you want to make sure that you get yourself as the owner off the chart. Create key personnel, make sure that you've got engagements and agreements in place, that you're engaging those teams, working on clear defined roles. For company culture, you want to really work through making sure that you are building that culture in a healthy way, creating healthy communications, fostering a culture of accountability. These are all things that will grow and stay beyond your departure. In the financial health side, your accounting, you need to make sure that you've got your financials 2 to 3 years really running and looking proper. Having your contracts in place, recurring revenue is a strong transferable piece that you can have. Having regular budget and actual reviews versus actual reviews pieces. On the customer and markets pieces, right? I mean, we want to make sure that we have a stronger net promoter score. So start measuring that. If you aren't doing that, make sure you have a diversified client base. I just had a conversation the other day with a client who was asking specifically about a diversified client base because he's way out of whack with one particular client who's covering 25 to 30% of his business. I'm like, we got to get that down to probably 18, no more than 18% on any particular client. You want to make sure that you're diversified so that it doesn't really rock the boat if there are major changes in that space with a client. On the operations side, make sure that your assets and your property are all lined up, and those things are properly organized, documents, systems, processes, SOPs, all those kind of things. Make sure that you're building efficiencies into your service delivery and your supply chain processes. Products and services, thinking about scalable processes, any kind of supplier contracts, territorial exclusivities, all those kind of things help create transferable value. Any kind of areas of innovation. And then lastly here, just the idea of having a current business valuation. Conduct an internal mock due diligence. Make sure that you've got that, something that you've already practiced and you're ready to go. This takes 2 to 3 years. I'm just going to pause to breathe myself and also let you take that in. It's going to take 2 to 3 years. So if you're beginning to think in a way of exit, it may be that, I would hate to say, plan before you even start to feel like you want to leave. Because once you start to feel like you want to leave, you're likely thinking 6 months to a year, and that may not be long enough to get things where they would really maximize the value in your business. So where do we go from here? Real quick, depending on the company size, I'd love to offer an initial exit assessment. 3 to 5 days on site, 1 to 3 advisors. We come in and help really wrap all of those things up, and it's planned on 5 to 15,000 plus travel expenses, roughly, for that kind of an arrangement. With that assessment, the major takeaway is we come back with a 1-day in-person report with the documentation of everything that we found, roadmaps for how to move forward, and you're welcome to take that and run with it, or if you'd like to engage with us for more ongoing work to help move you in that direction, that's where we can come alongside you as well. So that's that in terms of the exit assessment. Would love it if you would contact me for any kind of exit advising, business coaching and consulting, any kind of leadership development work, or workshops, seminars, opportunities to speak. I mentioned earlier the core process, the one thing that you are taking away from here. So what is that one thing? What's holding you back? What is the thing that you want to take away as your learning opportunity for today? I encourage you to call it out to yourself, write it down. What are the cold, hard facts of your particular situation right now? Own it. What is the root cause? And take some time to really think, why is this so? What am I doing to, maybe if it's within yourself, within the company, but what is that roadblock and why is it there? Then we're going to respond. All right, what's the plan of action to address this? Baby steps. If it feels like a wall, it's because it's too big. We got to break it down to small little baby steps. What is it that you need to do to be able to put a plan of action? And then what is your deadline? And who is going to hold me accountable? So think about the deadline that you want to set. It's got to be timely. And who's going to hold you accountable to it? And if you're interested in moving forward with the conversation around exit and succession planning, I'd be happy to engage with you and explore and just have that conversation.